it became a target.
So it has nothing to do
They knew about the bite before.
because they've been advertising real estate expo that's going around to all kinds of Jewish communities and it's going to
Imagine they found out that much Zombie bought an apartment. Thanks.
Okay. Today's daf is daf ches. Where did we get up to yesterday? Zainam base. Amar below machlokes v'shnei madugan. Yeah, that's right. Amar below machlokes. This sugya is going to be a very important sugya because this changes everything. Until now, we thought that they cut in half whatever it is that they're fighting about. A baguette, the talus. Now we're going to see it's all monetarily. Amar below machlokes v'shnei madugan b'toyfus. The Rashi explains either they're both holding on to the typhus or both holding on to the Torah. I mean, they're both holding on to the same part of the star. So therefore, they split the star. Then zenaitel typhus, zenaitel Torah. There's a little bit of a discussion over here what the Torah and what the typhus is and what significance that they have. Rashi learns that the way it works is first the Torah is written, and in the Torah is the date and all of the specifics of the star, so the malva, the loiva, the amount. The only thing that the Torah doesn't have at the top of the star is the Edom, because the Edom's at the bottom. The Typhus has all the standard stuff, like when you buy a pre-printed ksuba, it has all the stuff that you don't have to fill in. But all the way at the end of the Typhus, it repeats all of the information that's relevant, like from the Torah, and then the Edom sign. What's not repeated at the bottom is the date. So the primary difference between the Typhus and the Torah is, does it have a date or not? And that's very significant because you can only take from the Chasam Ushabodim, you can only take from Karkoyus that your loiva has already sold. You can take them away from the Lekach if there's a date on the star. If there's no date on the star, it does not create a Shibud Karkoyus. So the difference between a star with a date and without a date is not possible without a date. It's just that you'll never be able to seize Karkoyus from the loiva. So Zok the Gemara, but if one is holding on to Typhus and one is holding on to Torah, Zen Neitel Typhus, Zen Neitel Torah. So at first glance, it seems that it means you'll be able to collect, but you won't be able to collect the Mishabodim, which the Gemara talks about a little later, because the Gemara is going to ask in a minute, what's the difference what you're holding? Typhus has a little bit of a difficulty with this, because Typhus, if you technically cut it apart, the star is completely puzzled. If you take a star, you cut it apart, and you have the Typhus, you have nothing. If you have the Torah, you have nothing. So that's why the Gemara is going to explain that it's really money that we're splitting. Rabbi Yechon Amar, it's always split. Is that so? Even if one's holding the Torah, so one holds the Torah, how did we learn? Didn't we learn that each person takes for sure what's within his hand, and they only split what's in the middle? And if here, thank you so much. And if over here, one is Aduk with Toivus and one is Aduk with Toiv, how could Rabbi Yochanan say it's split equally? The reason why it's split is because the Torah is in between them. So Rabbi Yochanan is not really arguing on Rabbi Lozer. Rabbi Yochanan is saying in a case where the Torah is in between them, then they split the Torah, then they split everything. So why do I need Rabbi Yochanan to tell me that? Did we not already learn that halacha? It's closer to one side, so similar to what we said by the scarf yesterday. Let's split it. Let's split it down the center, so I get the turf and you don't. Cut it the other way. If you cut it the other way, you've destroyed the star.
Stand by a begging.
Oh, Moti, I'm not that tired.
Milk.
That having more of a begging.
I need it.
No, it's not a lot of coffee. It's just not so much milk.
Oh, okay, good. No problem.
Having more or less of the begging is the benefit.
What?
If you have more of a
But more or less of a piece of paper is you have a half a Polish star and I have a half a Polish star.
Yeah.
Right. No, that's good. It's good. It's fine. But just separate. I have to use. I have to get used to it. I have to get used to it. It's good. No,
The star is on the paper is written on.
Right.
Not even starting with
Exactly. Oh, so that's what the Gemara is going to say over here. It's a torn star. It's useless. If you cut a star in half, they both have zero. So what exactly are we fighting about? That we're fighting over. I want the date on my bottle stopper, right? Like it's a nice bottle. I'm taking it out on a date, so I need a date on the bottle stopper. Like the key is let's make. When I'm holding on to one part of the star and you're holding on to the other part of the star, how we split it up doesn't mean that we cut it in half. It means the value, the intrinsic, the representative value that each one has, that's what it is. Zok to Gemara, the Omar Hachi. So this is how we split it up. You have these two people that are holding on to the star. If one is holding on to the Torah and one is holding on to the Toifus, the way it works is star this by Zman Kamashavi. How much is a star that has Zman in it? So, for instance, I have a star, I'm holding on to a star that says that Chaim Yankel owes me $100. What if I wanted to sell that to a third party today? I wanted to sell it to a Victor. You're not going to pay me $100 for it. You'll pay me $90 for it. It's like selling a bond, a junk bond. If it has a date on it, it's a good bond because you could collect. The chances are very high that you're going to end up collecting. With the last Mizman, if it doesn't have a Zman, that's a junk bond because that you can never collect from Mishavodim. Again, Kamashavi. So the Gemara elaborates. B'shtorda is Bizman Gavi Mishavdi. V'edich Gavi Mishavdi.
That's if it has a signature, but if it doesn't have a signature.
Oh, Freit Chaim, if I have the Torah, I might have a date, but I don't have Edom. Oh, Gavaldi. So what does Rashi say? Let's look at the last two lines in Rashi on this Amud. Ha'istal Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, Moide b'shtar shekasvoi ein tzorich l'kaimoi. The high Moide shekasvoi. This case is the case was Moide b'shtar shekasvoi. Tosha still doesn't like it because if there's no Edom, it's a possible star. So Tosha gets into maybe we hold Edom. In Sirikasi, it gets a little messy. That's why it's a long Tosha. But I'll call upon them. It's speaking where the fact that now the owner of the Tosha doesn't have the Edom, that's not a problem for whatever reason. So Zok Gemara, one is great for Mishad, one's not. The Yoiv Laheich Tepeni Upeni, period. So let me just stop for a second to make sure I understand this. We're fighting over the star. I'm the Malva, you're the Loiva. So I thought, up until now, that we're fighting about whether or not you're going to have to pay me or not. Or v'yachloiku, you pay me half. Now we're saying you for sure don't pay me 100 or a half of 100. That's out of the question. That's gone. I'm not collecting on this life. What I'm getting is the value of this star that it would be to a third party. So if I'm holding the Toifis as the Malva, doesn't matter what I am, I'm holding a piece of paper with $50 because the star says 100, and at most it's worth 50, right? If there's no guarantee that I'll be able to collect because you can't collect from Mishubadim. The Loiv is holding on to a star that has a value of 90 because he has the date on his part of the star, and therefore, if he would want to sell the star to a third party, it'd be worth 90. So he has 90, I have 50. The difference between 50 and 90 is 40. He'll have to pay me 20. That's how it'll be done. And I'm not collecting. Because it's all about the value. We look at the star like it's an independent thing, not related to the Malva or the Loiva. If they found a star on the street, like if they find a beggar on the street, and they split the part that's in between them. Now,
What happens with the star?
I'm sorry,
Who gets to keep the star?
I'm not sure. It's a shachloiku. It doesn't matter anymore. It's not going to be collectible. Nothing to collect on it. The yachloiku nami da amran. And even the yachloiku that we say by a beged, by a talus, is also l'tami. So it changes our whole perspective on the whole situation over here. You don't cut a scarf in half. If the scarf is worth $100, and I'm holding half and I say kula shali, and you're holding half and you say kula shali, one of us get it, and the other guy has to pay half of the difference, right? Because we don't want to destroy it, and the Gemara is going to show it's impossible that we actually destroy it. The problem that some of the Rishonim have is that works out really well if it's a Metzia, where what we want is the value, right? I found something worth $100, I'm $100 richer. You say it's yours, so we have to split it. By Mekach Memkar, nobody's getting richer, right? Because this Mishnah applies to Mekach Memkar as well. Whoever doesn't get it is going to get his money back. Right? That's what the Gemara said later on. The guy says, I'm not stealing from you, go find it somewhere else. There, for sure, it's the actual object that you're fighting about. So there's a little bit of a shaila to be showing them what's going to be there. it's a little complicated, so I always take the path of least resistance. The Marshal says it must be that by Mekach and Mekach you still cut it in half, because otherwise you're not settling the dispute. Because there the dispute is actually to have the chayfetz, while in the case of Metzia, the dispute is who gets the value of the chayfetz. Because I found that I want to keep it. So now let's see how the Gemara proves that it has to be referring just to the value, and you're not actually splitting the item found itself. Hakanami, the poly, you're actually going to cut it in half. You're going to destroy it. You're going to cut a talus in half. It destroys it. Halakasha, lav dafka will it destroy any value. The chazi lektanim. Yes, it's not going to be any more a full size beged that you could use for an adult, but it could be used for children, so it still has a value. We had that as well. No one's wrapping a child in a golden scarf. So if it's for an adult, okay. No, Shiny Eid wants to wear a golden scarf, but for little kids, you don't wear a golden scarf, right? Someone once told me that he saw El Eid walking with a stick. He just got a cane, so he asked his friend, "The holds in the stecken, guys, today? What you've also a zilb in the stecken." So the Eid says, "Ich hat steam at the feast, nicht mit the cup." So what value is there in a pint-sized golden beged? For the royal children of Malchus, they might be wearing gold as well. Okay, so in there you don't have a raya, but maybe we have a raya for the other part of the Mishnah. Well, at the time, again, the pogila, right? We said you're going to cut an animal in half.
Why does it jump right to the fancy towel? Anything, it could be anything. Why is that to
Because anything you cut in half, it becomes small. You can use it for a child.
But why does the Gemara go and say, but
Because a gold talus you normally wouldn't use for a child.
you're saying that
So by cutting it off, you messed it up.
Right.
Right? Yeah, it would destroy it entirely.
A luxury garment, if you cut it in half, then there's kids who will put Gucci shoes on their kids.
Correct. That's right. Zok Gemara, Hakanami, the pagal half to do it. What about the animal? You can chop an animal in half. It ruins everything. If it's a behemoth that they're fighting about, chazal basar. It's still worth money. You haven't lost any value. Maybe you even increased its value because you're splitting the meat. Ela Tamea, if it's a horse that they're cutting in half or a chamor that they're cutting in half, half to do it. What is a horse, half a horse worth? Ella, it must be l'tamei hachanami l'tamei. So you have a raya from here that the achloiku that the Mishnah is talking about is not that you're really cutting it in half. What you're doing is they're splitting the value of it. So one person will get it, or they'll sell it, and each one will get half the money, or one person will get it, and they'll have to pay off the other person. Amar Rami Bacham. Now we have a whole new sugya. And I want to thank my cousin for teaching me this Gemara last night, because I didn't know pshat until he taught it to me. They could do that. You talking about a dead horse? Yeah, but it loses most of its value. A horse is much more valuable as a tool to ride on than it is to sell to a goy for a tray for meat.
Yeah, but it's saying on the top
Except- They eat horses there? Oh, okay. So Zok to Gemara. Zoyse Meres. From here we see. Where's from here? So this is a very important Rashi. Zoyse Meres. Masnisin de katani shnayim shegbu Metzia kanua v'yachloi. Right, our Mishnah says that two people that lift up Metzia together are both koined and they split it. Right, that's what the Mishnah says. So ucheshemagbia magbia ladash yikna b'chaverichet. When you're picking it up with the intent that your friend should own half. So when I saw this, right, I said, what do you mean? That's not the case of our Mishnah. I picked it up, so I should own everything. Right, we're fighting over it. I'm saying kulashili. True. So we have to trust Rashi that the Gemara is going to soon illustrate a case where I actually am picking it up with the intention that you should be kind of half. So whenever we identify what case in the Mishnah that's from, we'll get to it. But this is the conclusion that the Gemara is making, that Rabbi Bacham is making. Shemami no, don't worry about not knowing where you see this in the Mishnah, because the Gemara is going to ask very soon, where in the Mishnah do you say anything about me picking up a baguette for you to be kanya? Okay, but this is not a hilchas kinyan dike halacha. Because why shouldn't you be able to be a shliach for somebody else? Here the problem is, you're being koine for somebody b'makom shechav lacher. Because if you're being koine metzia on behalf of a third party, you're hurting everybody else who might want it to have been zoiche in it. So if he made you a shliach, of course you could make shlichus for him. But you on your own want to be mizaka in it, a half of the beged for this other guy, you can do that because maybe you can do that. Maybe you're being chav lacher. And that is what the question here. So we're not even discussing a kinyan de halacha. We're discussing the problem here of chav lacher. So Zoyse Meris, hamakbia metzila chaveri kana chaver.
It's kind of for myself.
So you're asking all very good questions. Let's watch the Gemara. That's one of the as the Gemara does say. If you're going to say loy kana chaver, right? Then in this case, where I'm picking it up and I have kavana for Yana to be kind of half, and he's picking it up, and he has kavana for me to be kind of half, to Yosazu, Kamisha Munachas Agabe Karka. Lagabi Mr. A, who picked up one side, the other side should be like it's still on the floor and there was no kinyan on it. Vizu Kamisha Munachas Agabe Karka. And for me, the other guy picking it up should be like it's on the karka. Why? So it's a little bit deceiving when you read the Gemara. It sounds like it's a kinyan de kalacha. And that's why I couldn't understand it. But Yosy pointed out to me the Rashi. If you look at Rashi, it becomes clear. And therefore, it should be considered that no one was kind. Zok the Gemara, Elav Shma Mina, Hamagbia Metzia Chaveroi, Kana Chaveroi. Amarava, you don't have a raya. La'olam Eimalach, Hamagbia Metzia Chaveroi, Kana Chaveroi. If I was picking up something, not to be kind at all for myself, the whole purpose of me picking it up is only to be kind for you. There may be like a chaveri. So maybe hamagbia metzia lechaveri like a chaveri. If you're on the street and you see a metzia, you see a nice watch, you say, "Oh, my friend Yankel needs a watch. I'm going to be kind this watch on behalf of Yankel." That doesn't work because you are being chav lacher. But for hadu taima, when I'm picking it up, like Chaim said, I want it for myself. Migu de zachila nafshei. Since I'm being kind, part of it's for myself because I only want to have half of it. The other half I want. Therefore, zachi nami lechavri. Now let's see Rashi. If you find a Metzia and you don't want it, you don't want any part of it, but you do want to be zoiche in it on behalf of your friend, maybe you don't say Magbia Metzia lechaveri kana chaveri. Maybe it doesn't work. Why wouldn't it work? And here is the key to the sugya. The time of Omer lekamon davetoifis levachoy b'mokum shechav lacher. If you go take a Metzia, which is available to everybody, and now you're zoiche in it for somebody, how could you be zoicha for this person when you're being chav to everybody else who would have otherwise wanted it? But when you're picking it up for yourself anyway, Zokt Rashi, v'hacha dekatani b'masnisin shnayim shegbiu mitzia kanu. That's not because I'm magbia mitzia chaveri kana chaveri. It's because I'm being kind for myself anyway. Migu de zachila nafshei zachi nami lechaveri. And Zokt Gemara Teda, I'm going to prove to you that when it's not a structural kinyan problem, there's a different there's a different technicality which will prevent me from being kaina. So in our discussion here, the technicality is b'makom shachav lacherim, but I'll find another technicality that wouldn't allow A to do something for B if he's doing it for himself as well. At the same time, you have the svara of migu de zachila nafshei zachi nam l'chavri. And what is that teda? I'll show you from a different case. She'ilu Omar l'shluchai say v'gnoivli v'ganav potter. If I send the shliach and I tell him go steal this for me, and the shliach steals it, I'm potter. The ganav is chai, as Rashi says. Tafilu Omar loikana chaveri heicha degbia kulay ledas chaveri. But even if you're going to say that when you didn't have any intention to be kind it yourself, you were having intention to be kind the whole thing on behalf of your friend, that might not work. But hacha degbia la'atzoi ula chaveri. Here, since you also have an intention to be kindness for yourself as well, it overrides the problem of chav lacher kani mishumigu. Why? Because if you send somebody to steal for you, that person will be chayav for stealing, but you will be potter, as Rashi says. Potter, hamishaleach potter minul shalom kefel. The mishalech will not have to pay. Why? The kaim alone ain't shliach l'dvar aveir l'schayiv shliach el shliach. So here it's the same thing. Technically, he could be kind to something for me. So al tekinyin shaboy, this Ganav who's stealing on my behalf should be a good shliach. But there's a third problem, a third party technicality, an external technicality of ein shliach l'dvar which prevents him from being able to be my shliach. The divrei harav, the divrei hatalmud, divrei mishoimin. It's not a good shlichus because you shouldn't be listening to my instructions. You should be listening to the Rebbeinu Shalom's instruction. However, vishutzim shagavu, but if two shutzim steal together, kayavin, meaning as we both picked up this item together to be koinit, you're koinit because of me picking it up, and I'm koinit because of you picking it up. What's the reason for that? My timer. Lav mishum darmino migu de zachlu nafshei zachi nami lechavrei. It must be that since I'm also stealing it for myself, therefore I can also steal it for my chaver. So you see, the migu de zachilu nafshei overrides the problem of shlichut v'arveira. So let it also override the problem of the makom shechav lacher. Shema mina. So let's hear Rashi. V'ilo shutzim shegavu v'ilo echad haitzia mershus bailim lidaitoi uledas chaveira. So the way I taught you that we're both carrying it together was actually how Tosfos explains it. Rashi says one person is taking it on behalf of both of us. Amrina b'Bava Kama the chayavin. Tosfos remembers Bava Kama still. So Tosfos was able to tell us that if you look up the Gemara, it's not what it says. It says if one person shechted it or sold it for both of us, they're chayiv. And the Gemara makes a deal, just like Mechira needs two people, Tficha can also be done on two people. That's the right that it works with there. But Avada, the Geneva will only work if we're both taking it out together.
We can't just be co-conspirators.
Well, so that's how Tosfos learn. We're co-conspirators, and we're carrying the item out together.
Let's go. We'll split the proceeds.
So that's how Rashi learns. We're co-conspirators, but you're doing the dirty work.
Split the benefit.
Correct.
So say that
Tosfos is just saying that the Gemara in Bava Kama, if you look it up, doesn't say that. He's not saying that it's not true. He's saying the Gemara doesn't say that. But Akalpanim, you see, that's right. So you see that the Migu de Zachil and Afshei can overrule this technicality. So the same way it can overrule the technicality of Ein Shlichus L'Dvar Veira, it should also be able to overrule the technicality of Ein Zachil L'Bachoy V'Mokim Shachav Lacher. Okay, gewaltig. So Zok Gemara, let's take this a step further. The Gemara never rests on its laurels. The Gemara says, okay, now that we've come up with this innovation, let's see what additional chiddush we can now jump into. Amarava, Hashid the Amrat, the Amrina Migui. Now that we have this concept of once I'm involved, it overrules any other technicality. As Rashi says, Hashid the Amrat, Migui dizachel nafshei, Cherish upikeach shegbeu Metzia. If a cherish and a pikeach picks up a Metzia together, a pikoyach can have a kinyan. The kinyan of a cherish is not a good kinyan. It's only midrabanan because it's going to create fights. He's going to pick something up and you're going to take it away from him. He's going to fight with you. So therefore, the rabbanan made a takana that the kinyan of a cherish works as well. So therefore, now that we say migoy, so cherish ubikeach shekbiu mitzia mitoich shekana cherish, since the cherish is koina, although it's only midrabanan. Kana bikeach, the bikeach will also be kind. Zokt Rashi, chereshu bikeach shehegbiu metzia kanua, they will be kind. They'll each be kind b'shutfis. Alpha P shagba shal cheresh ein hagba lichtais. Even though the hagba of cheresh does not work as a kinyan, elam epnei darkish shalom. It's only with the rabbanon that he's kind. Kidetan cheresh right to the katan yesh ban gezel epnei darkish shalom. Afilo achi, we say mikud zachel avshei. About whatever he's doing is working for himself, it will also work for the Pikach. So we're using this migloy to overcome a technicality. For Gemara, this is very different than a technicality. This is a structural problem in the Kinyan. I understand why the Cherish is kind. Because for his own chelik that he picked up, he has the Darkei Shalom Kinyan of the Rabbana. And for the other chelik, where he's not titled to Darkei Shalom, he has a Pikach, making the other half of the kinyan for him. The kamag belay bendas ela pikeach b'may kana. How did pikeach going to be kinyan? This isn't just a technicality. This is a structural failure of the kinyan. Because sure, my part, I'm kinyan because I'm making a kinyan deraisa. But just because they make this special darkei shalom takana for the cherish, that doesn't mean they're going to make it for me too. Because I understand what's going on. I'm not going to fight. So Zok Gemara Bishlam Cherish. Let's see Rashi. Bishlam Cherish Kani the Kamak V'Lo Bendas LeRoisha Sheni L'Tzarich Shneim. Who's picking up the other side for this Cherish? A capable person who can make a proper kinyan. And V'Roisha Shel Tzarich Cherish L'gabe cherish mi have agba. Relative to the cherish it's agba, because he has that takana of Dr. Shalom. He's talking lay b'ftei Dr. Shalom. But on the other way around, el pikech b'may kani. How could it be pikech b'koina with that the cherish is picking it up for him? L'gabe pikeach have a roisha shekbiach cherish kamunach l'gabe karka. That's like it's sitting on the ground. The agba the cherish l'koina. The agba the cherish will not be koina el midakei shalom ba'alma. So therefore, how could you explain how the kinyan of the cherish will work? Zok to Gemara. Okay, so we'll have to do a revamp. Sorry. What's the problem? Because the pikech is his agba is a good agba.
The cherish is kind of because the Chum said from the
Right.
Dr.
Shalom.
Have the hefke as hefke.
So al Dr. Shalom they can give it to him. Correct.
So here your
Right.
problem was because it's not a real hagbo, it's like menach bekarka. So then how?
So the pikech can't be koina because the kinyan of the cherish will not work for the pikech. Right. So that's exactly what the Gemara is saying.
That was how the.
So now you're saying how's the pikech going to be koina? Oh, that's a beautiful kasha. How's the cherish going to be koina now? If the pikech wasn't koina,
It's kind because that the Chum said whatever it is, it belongs to you. I don't care. I'm getting.
and the other half of the kinyan that we're relying on somebody else for, we have a proper kinyan because the pikech can make a proper kinyan. But the other way around, I don't have the other half.
If the cash is the other half is on the floor, how is the bekarka?
That's exactly what the Gemara's kasha is right now. That's the Gemara's kasha. El pikech b'may kana. Zok to Gemara, ela ema. So let's change what we said. Not that the pikech is kana. Ela ema cherish kana, pikech loy kana. The cherish will be kana because for his part he has the kana of Dr. Shalom, and for the other part there's a derash to the kinyan. But for the Gemara, umay miku, there's no miku anymore. I can't say miku d'zachal nafshay because the pikech is not kana. So how could you say that the pikech's kinyan works for the cherish halfway? He doesn't have a miku d'zachal nafshay because his kinyan is no good.
Maybe the cherish doesn't need the pikech.
Why doesn't he need the pikech? He doesn't pick up half of it. They're misaking for what he did. They're not going to be misaking for what he didn't pick up, and we'll soon see that because if he didn't pick it up, he knows it's not a kinyan. The reason why it's Dr. Shalom is because when he picks it up, he thinks his agba is koina, and when someone comes to take it away from him, he'll start fighting with him. How you talking? But if he himself knows that he didn't pick it up, he's not going to have a problem. So Zok Rashi, umay migu ikalameimer hacha. What type of migu do you have here? The ka'amar hashad amrit migu, amrina migu. The cherish and my kani. How could the cherish be koina even though the pikayach picked up his half? Haloizachi pikayach l'nafshay. The pikayach is not being koina over here, as Chaim pointed out. So you don't even have the migu d'zach l'nafshay anymore. The name of the zach nami lechavrei. If the pikayach was being koina half of it at the same time, so then you could say migu d'zach l'nafshay zach nami lechavrei. But here the pikayach is not able to be koina for himself because the cherish's hagba won't work for him. So then that bounces right back. Now that he's not a zach l'nafshay, the cherish can no longer be koina. Well, have hagba the pikayach hagba. Elo zak Gemara. Just like if one cherish picked it up, if two charashim picked it up, it's koina. So that's the thing. If two charashim picked it up, where there is the takana on either side, and therefore either one will be koina, at least midirabanan, because of Dr. Shalom. Hi nami kani. Therefore, even the cherish and the pikech will be koina. Even the cherish and the pikech will be koina, because the pikech is no worse than if he was a cherish, even though he is. Zog to Gemara, Haimai. That's not so true. Imdim Taloimer, Hamagbi Metzia Chaverei, Kana Chaverei. If you hold Hamagbi Metzia Chaverei, Kana Chaverei, Hanamili, that only works. Heicha the Kamagvele Adati the Chaverei. That's only if when I'm picking it up for my chaver, meaning I'm picking it up with the intent that it should be for somebody else. But Hai Adaita Didei Kamagvele. Here the Bikeach is picking it up for himself. And the Bikeach himself is not going to. So how is it possible that he could be mocked to somebody else? Forget your migu. It doesn't make any sense. There's no migu d'zachol nafshay because I'm not koined for myself. Ella, so let's change what we said. Now it's much simpler. If it was two charashim, you have a migu. Migu d'zachol nafshay, at least in the Rabbanan oifen, zachinami lechavrei. But a bikeach doesn't have that, and therefore, if a bikeach and the cherish picked it up, neither of them would be koined. Gewaltig. Zok to Gemara. So why is it any different than two charashim? There, nothing works. So why do we say that Migoy that they both work? Because Hasam the Kino Lahu Rabbanon the also Lensuyu. There they made a takana that both of these two Charashim shouldn't fight Dr. Rashi im achoitzimehem. If they two pick it up thinking that they're each koina and they help the other one be koina as well, and then a third party comes along and takes it away, they're going to have a big fight with him because they think that they're being wrong. But Hacha Meimer Amar, the Cheresh is not such a stupid guy. He knows Pikeich lekoni. I know that Pikeich is not koina in this case. Only I'm koina. I'm not acting. So he understands why he shouldn't fight with the guy who takes it away. Because if the guy who picked it up, if the other guy who picked it up is not being koina, so I could understand already why I don't get it. So you don't need the takana of Daki Shalom over here because he understands. Sorry?
Why is Aslin Suya a reason to be koine?
That's what a Daki Shalom. The Daki Shalom is we don't want fights. Since this Cherish thinks he's koined and someone else comes along and grabs it away, the Cherish is going to punch the guy in the nose. What are you doing? It'll be a whole fight. So in order to avoid fights, we'll say, okay, let's listen.
That's happen. But to understand that ich bin koin, ich bin makne, he's not koin, and I'm giving it, the Cheresh can go to Chayden.
The Gemara disagrees with you. The Gemara says a Cheresh versteht in Yapis. And I'll tell you why.
Sorry.
Let me tell you why. But I'll bring you right. There's one that didn't tell you by Reb Kiveger. And Reb Kiveger said, and there was a woman against some men. And the woman said a taina, and she had a migoy that she should be neman with her taina because she could have said a better taina. So Reb Kiveger wanted to believe the woman. So the other tzad says, she doesn't have a migoy. There's no way in the world she would have ever thought of that other taina. She's a woman. So Reb Kiveger said, "To kim geld, afroz ocha groß tamachom."
Okay, but that's why the Chum made the Tikkun for the Cherushim because they also did business.
Right.
They understand what they see, but
I hear what you're saying, but the Gemara is
the whole reason why the Chum made them because why isn't the Cheresh koine? If he could learn him,
I understand. It's because it affects his intelligence.
He can't listen.
Yeah. Okay, so we finished this whole sugya and we understand that a Metzia Metzia Chaveri is Kana Chaveri. You have to say that. So Eibazoi, the UK, the Rami V'chol Mehecha. Where did he find the case where someone's picking it up for somebody else? In name of my Reisha of Shnai Meksa Metalis, how could that be? Hasam, Hai Kama Kulishli, V'ano Agbakula. Right? Each guy says, I made that call by myself. V'hai Amar Kulishli, V'ano Agbatakula. So that's not an example of Metzia Metzia L'Chaveri, right? Ella, maybe let's try the next case. The Katani, Ze Aimer Kula Shali, Veze Aimer Kula Shali. Hasulamali. Why did it say those extra words of Kula Shali? It says Anima Tasiya, and then it repeats it again, Zama Kula Shali. Why do we have to repeat the cases? Ella in Mishnah Yisera, since there's like an extra case here of Zama Kula Shali, Zama Kula Shali, Shmami, no, we could learn from there that a Magvi Metzia Chaveri Kana Chaveri. We're darshaning the words of the Mishnah like a pasuk. This case is extra. Let's say a Magbi Metzia Chaveri Kana Chaveri. Frank Gemara, were you not here for enough base? Oh, Kimna Reisha b'Metzia b'Seifa b'Mekach Memkar. Not extra, right? We said Anima Tzia is a thing about a Metzia, and Zarma Kulishli is speaking about when they're fighting over a purchase. So there's no extra there. Nothing to find here. Let say, let's go to the next case of the Mishnah. Zarma Kulishli v'Zarma Chetzishli. Hasulamali. What is the chiddush of the second half of the Mishnah? It just changes the scope of what we're fighting about, but it has the same halacha. So that whole case is extra. Ella mimishna yisera shema minaha magbi metzia lechaver chan chaver. So it's not extra. There's a special chiddush in that case that requires mentioning. So this is not an extra mishnah. Why? First the Gemara asks, umay de b'metzia dilma b'mekach hamemkar. Maybe it's speaking about mekach hamemkar. V'chitema even mekach hamemkar ma'ile memra. What's the chiddush? Itzrich. So Kedaita Chamina, I would have thought, maybe the person who said Chetz Shali instead of Kula Shali should be believed with a migui again. Lahave Kemeshev Aveda, the lifter. Because he's thinking to himself, if I say Kula Shali, they're going to make me swear. Let me be a gentleman, I'll say Chetz Shali. So Bezin will say he's probably saying the truth. Because if he was a crook, he would have said Kula Shali. And maybe I won't have to swear, the lifter. Kamash Malan, that no, he's a conniving crook. The high Iaruma Kamarim. That's all part of his cheshbon to try to fool Bezin into thinking that he's honest. Savar, he thinks to himself, Yamina Kula Shali, but in Nishtabuye. I'll say Chati Shali, the Havakamish of Aveda, Bezdin think, oh, what an Erlich guy. The iftar and they won't demand a shvuah from me. Kamash Malan the Mishnah that no, even though you have to swear, we see right through you. So again, we don't have any extra case in the Mishnah to teach us that I'm Metzia Metzia Lechaveri Kana Chaveri. Elameha Hayushnayim Reichu Lagabe Behem. Why do I need that case for? Hasulamali. Why do I need the case of Reichu Lagabe Behem? It's another example of two people fighting over something. Elam Mishnah Seir Shmamina Hamagvia Metzia Lechaveri Kana Chaveri. In fact, we're no. Maybe there's another chiddush in that. The Roichev Nami Kainli. How would you know otherwise that riding an animal is a kinyan? We know when you make a Mashiach on an animal, it's a kinyan. Where do we ever know that riding an animal is a kinyan? Maybe that's what the Mishnah is trying to tell us. So that's given up on. El Miseifa. Let's try another case. Bisman Shei Moedin. In the case where two people come to best and they both agree that you own half and I own half, or there's Edim that say we both own half. There it's Chokim B'lo Shvuah. We remember when we learned this in the Mishnah, we didn't understand what the Chiddush is. If we're both agreeable, why does the Mishnah need to tell me that if there's no dispute, everything's fine? We need a Mishnah to tell me that if we each purchased half, we each get half. It must be that case was Metzia. And the question is, if we both agree, what do we both agree that we were each coined it? That means we both picked it up at the same time. Oh, so how did that work? It must be that I had in mind that 50% should be yours. So I was Megbiyah for you, and you were Megbiyah for me. But Rav says it's not a raya, because in the case of the Mishnah, as we said earlier, Migu, there I'm not just picking up a Metzia for my chaver, I'm actually being kanyut as well. There it works. But Lav Davka will work if I'm picking it up only for my chaver.
One had in mind half is for me and half is for you, and the other had in mind, I guess that's the case. The other had in mind the whole thing's for me. That was one of the times already.
That's right. What if both people are riding? We learned Allah is Yishachlad. Amar Rabbi Yosef, Amar Li Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yosef said that Rabbi Yehuda once taught me something, and what did Rabbi Yehuda taught me? He taught me that he heard Allah from Shmuel, but he didn't understand it fully. Shamas Minei Demar Shmuel Tarti. I once heard two halachas from Shmuel, but I can't figure out which is which. Rachav Umani, he was speaking about Rachav, riding an animal, and he was speaking about leading an animal. And he told me, Chad Kani, the Chad Lekani, but for Lo Yadan, the Haiminayu. I don't remember which one is Kani, which one isn't. But I know one is, one isn't. Zaktimar Hechidam. Let's do an analysis. Why is it that Rabbi Yehuda couldn't figure it out? It's a pretty simple logic to figure out which is which. If what Shmuel was talking about is a standalone guy who rode an animal, is he kind of? A standalone guy was madig an animal, is he kind of? Frankly, manig lechudei mi ika laman damer loikani. Surely manig is kind of. That's the textbook case of Mashiach. So that's not what Rabbi Yehuda would have figured that out. That of course manig works, so it must be Rochav doesn't work. Ella ika laman loikani. The only option would be what's not kind of is Rochav. So Rabbi Yehuda wouldn't have had a suffer. So that cannot be what Shmuel was talking about. Ella, what Shmuel must have been talking about was Rachav b'mokamami. One guy's riding, one guy's leaning. Who has the kinyan? And that was the question. Iboile, that was the question. My Rachav Odav is riding at a better kinyan. The toughest bar. He's on the animal, right? And there's a little bit of a discussion what toughest bar means that will come out a little bit soon. Tosha says it doesn't just mean because you're on it and your legs are wrapped around it. It doesn't mean that. It means that you're also making it move, but it's not making it move as much as a Mashiach. Sorry?
Control it.
Yeah, you control it, but you're still not making it move as much as you would with a Mashiach, is what Tosha says. Oidelma, maybe Manik is Adif, the Oslo Machmosei, because there it's really moving because your mamish pulling it, you're leading it. So what would be a stronger kinyan when two people are doing them together? Amar Rabbi Yosef, Amar Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda told me that I was able to figure out, after some analysis, what Shmuel actually said. Nechsianan, let's have a look. The Tanan we learned, the halacha is, if you lead Klayim, so you pull two animals that are harnessed together, a shor and a chamor, you get malchus, because it says that loisachrosh b'shor v'chamor yachta. So what if someone is manik, two animals that are climbed together? Soivik es haraboyim, he gets malchus. But what if he didn't lead them? He's sitting in a wagon that they're pulling. By Yosef b'karoin, also soivik es haraboyim. But Reb Meir, Poiter as a Yosef b'karoin. Reb Meir holds it's potter meaning we don't consider it that it's leading. We consider sitting on a wagon being pulled by Klaim as a passive halacha. And you know what Shmuel did? Shmuel said there's a mistake over here in this price. Shmuel said it's the Chachamim who pattered, and Reb Meir was Machai. Why would Shmuel do that? Shmuel would do that because Shmuel must paskin that if you sit in the wagon, you're pater. And he didn't want it to be a Shittas Yachid of Reb Meir. He wanted the Chachamim to be the author of that Shita, that you're pater. So from the fact that Shmuel flipped it around, so it should be the Chachamim who are pater Yosy v'Karoin, it must be that Shmuel holds that sitting on the wagon isn't doing anything, which we're going to compare to Roiche. Shmamina, Rochav l'chudei loikani. That's how I can figure out from Shmuel that he must hold Rochav is not koina, because he wanted B'dafke that it should be the Rabbanon who said that the guy's pot. The Chol Shegein, so here you see Rochav alone is not koina. The Chol Shegein Rochav b'makim madik. Madik, if you Rochav on its own, it won't be a kinyan. Surely if you're Rochav while somebody else is manik, surely the guy who's being manik is going to be koina.
Is it good to say that the Roichev is not called that he's making the animal move? That's the reason.
No, we're touching now Roichev, he's making a move, but he's not making it move as much as the manik is.
Right. Why does he say by climate?
So let me hold off on that a little bit because I want to get to the end of the daf and we'll address that later. So Amalei Abai Rabbi Yosef. Hazimn and Sagin, I don't understand. Many times, Rabbi Yosef, Abai asked Rabbi Yosef, many times you say something over to us and you don't say it over in Rabbi Yehuda. You say it from yourself. Hazimn and Sagin, Amrtlon, Nechsenon. Many times you made your own analysis. You weren't relying on an analysis that Rabbi Yehuda made for you. Hazimn and Sagin, Amrtlon, Nechsenon. V'lo Amrtlon Mishmed Rabbi Yehuda. So first of all, this time it's Rabbi Yehuda's analysis. You make your own analysis many times. Amalei Ivra, because that's what happened. I'm telling you the facts. Rabbi Yehuda made this question. I'm just telling you it over as it happened. And you know what? I remember very clearly that it was Rabbi Yehuda who made this cheshbon, because I remember more details about that interaction. With the Charadin Nami, the Amrilay, we told him, hey, Chipashet Mar, we asked the Kasha on Rabbi Yehuda, hey, Chipashet Mar, Roichev, Miyoshev, how could you bring a raya that since Yoshev you don't get patched for Klayim, because of that, Roichev is not a good kinyan, which could be is what Chaim was talking about. When you're sitting on the wagon as a passenger, you're not holding on to the reins, you're not controlling the animals, you're completely passive. There might not be anything. But Rachav Tafis bin Maisera, someone riding it is doing much more than just sitting in a wagon that's being pulled by it. V'Amar Li, and he told me back. But I guess it says Yosef V'Krain, it's much that he was told me. V'Amar Li, Rav Shmuel, you know what he responded to me? Rav Shmuel, Amr Tavayu, Maisera Loikani. Just holding on to reins is not kind anyway. So therefore, since there's no significance in holding on to the reins, therefore he said that there's no difference between the Yosef and the rein. Igadami, there's another way this went down. Amr le Abai Rabbi Yosef. In fact, Rabbi Yosef didn't say this over in the name of Rabbi Yehuda. This was all Rabbi Yosef talking. And Abai asked Rabbi Yosef this question. Not Rabbi Yosef asked Rabbi Yehuda the question, but Abai asked Rabbi Yosef the question. Again, the same question. Hey, Chipashet Mar Roichav Yosef, Yosef Latafis b'Meisera, Rachav Tafis b'Meisera. Amaloi, and Rabbi Yosef answered back to Abaye, Hachitana Idi. This is what Idi taught us in the Mishnah. Meisera Lakani. So that was a version of how it went down. Itmar Nami. We also learned Amar Chel by Amar Puna, Meisera Mechavere Kana. If you're buying an animal from somebody else, just the Mesira of the owner handing the reins over to you, that in and of itself is a kinyan, even without a Mashiach. But if that's only when there's a Das Acher Smakta, because the action of giving it over to you is clearly showing, I want to transfer to you, to the purchaser, the control of this object. But by Metzia v'Nichse Eger, if you're being kani from Hefker, picking up the reins itself means nothing at all. Loikani, and therefore you'd only be kani if you actually made a Mashiach. So we're proving that just holding on to Meseira when it's a question of Hefker means nothing. My Lashon Meseira. What is the Lashon Meseira? Why is it called a Meseira? Amarava Idi Asperli, he explained it to me. It's because it's being handed over. The whole kinyan is the handover, the handoff. So it makes sense why it only works if you're being kinded from a third party. The kamasar lechavre. Your friend is handing you over something. That's the expression of a kinyan. Where you're taking it from Hefker, Man kamosha le delikni. There is no one who's being makne it to you that you will be able to be koined. That's why that's not a kinyan. So let's stop here. I just want to do what Tom says of where we're holding. So where we're holding now is that it seems like the psak from Shmuel is that Roichev alone is not koine, and we know it from Yosy, and we have a raya that Roichev and Yosy are the same, because holding on to rain don't mean anything, and Manik is koine. So the problem that we have is our Mishnah clearly says the Roichev was koine, so that's what we're going to have to deal with. We've just concluded that the Roichev is not koine, but the Mishnah says it is koine. So we're going to have to explain Roichev in our Mishnah different than a regular Roichev. But it's already 6:53, so we'll stop here and we'll be mamshuk tomorrow.
Lucy Messiah, we haben getracht, das Messiah, das Stück, man sagt es Mesreim. Dort schreibt man es mit der Sof, und du schreibst es mit das.
Well, that's strings. That's those moisture by the Mishkan are referring to rope. Yeah. Oh, so but that's why it doesn't mean rope. It means ivigate. Oh, very good. Very good. So that's what the Gemara says. It's not the rope. It's ivigate. That's the kinyan. Very good. Very good.
Well, the emphasis in Shabbos of the look is that if somebody walks the dog or whatever.
It's perfect. I should be making my own coffee. I puffed in. I feel stupid every day that someone's making me a coffee, but I'm like dying for it. So I appreciate it. But really, I should be here early and I should make it for myself. And I'm working on it. I got a pot yesterday because someone told me that he was once called up suddenly he got up suddenly to aid him. So I said, "Can I make it?" So he says, so maybe I stuck him earlier. It wasn't a chusid.